Hey everybody, welcome to today's webinar about 2025 Amazon seller updates that you need to know. We've got a really great lineup here. We've got Lou from Gatita and Mina and Sam from Trivium Group to talk about some of the things you need to know. I know there's a lot happening with FBA reimbursements and ads and all sorts of things, so we decided to bring some friends on to chat. So I'll start off by introducing myself. I'm Becky Trowbridge. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at Ecom Engine. I've been here for about 8.5 years and just kind of immersed in the seller space over my years working in content and marketing. And then Lou, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Lou Casados, VP of Sales and Go-to-Market at Gatita. We are an SIB company. I'm acquired by SIB a couple of years ago now. We'll explain a little bit more about what that means, but excited to be here and talk about some FBA reimbursement policy changes today with everybody.
What's up, guys? My name is Mina. I'm the founder and CEO of Trivium Group, which we're an Amazon ads agency or Amazon advertising agency. We handle everything end to end on Amazon. And so we're seeing a ton of different things and super excited to share some of the learnings of the new tools. Amazon has actually given me beta and some ad spend to like throw on some of their new tools. So I'm going to cover a little bit of that, cool stuff a little bit later on.
Cool. My name is Sam. I work at Trivium with Mina. All things Amazon DSP. So everything that I touch on will be in the programmatic marketing space within Amazon.
Awesome. So I just wanted to start off with some recent updates. So I'm sure a lot of you saw the product title guidelines changed back on January 21st. There's a character limit of 200 characters that includes spaces. You're not supposed to use special characters unless they're part of your brand name. You make sure you're not using redundant words multiple times, unless it's like a conjunction or something. They don't want to see repetitiveness. We have seen sellers getting their titles changed by Amazon. So this is just something to be aware of. As we get into the SERP is just increasingly important, right? And anything that impacts the way that people are seeing your product on the search results, you really want to pay attention to. So I just wanted to flag this one. And then also inbound placement fees have had a few updates that weren't really highly publicized. So they lowered the fee for large bulky back in January, which is great. But there's no more partial shipment split for standard starting February 20th. And so now you kind of have the option between paying a fee to send to fewer locations or meeting Amazon's really strict packing requirements with that 5-pack rule that we learned about back in, I believe, November for no fee or a low fee. So that's just something to be aware of as we talk about costs and preparing for 2025. I know there's a lot happening with tariffs. There's a lot happening with pricing. It's just really difficult to know exactly what to do, which is why I brought these guys on to tell us. But I just wanted to flag that one. And then just thinking about cutting your costs in 2025, it's not really an update, but I do think it's important. Reducing your packaging wherever possible, those FBA dimensions shifted last year. There's a more granular rate card. And so if you have a way to even shave off an ounce or two, it could make a big difference in your bottom line. So you might want to consider finding a way to reduce your packaging, thinking about enrolling in SIP, which is ships and product packaging. Mina, I think you did a webinar with them recently, right?
Yeah. So I did a full webinar. You can find it on the Trivium Group YouTube channel. I think SIP is a very powerful program because of a couple of reasons. Obviously, number one, you can kind of save a little bit on packaging because instead of sending like 100 units to Amazon, they take it, put it in a bubble mailer, sending it to your customer. It comes ready in the bubble mailer. And so you're going to pay a little bit more for the bubble mailer at the manufacturing level, but a little bit less at the Amazon level. And usually it comes out to a little bit of savings. But number two, the branding aspect really helps. And number three, Amazon is actually for the first time allowing you to send traffic from that bubble mailer to, or whatever, box, the ships and product packaging, to anything. Like you can send it to a website, you can send it to a landing page and collect their emails, et cetera, et cetera. So Amazon's being extra lenient with what you can do. And I was shocked. I was like, oh, you're actually allowing people to do that? And the answer was yes. So take advantage. I think it's a really cool way to look really like a professional company that's well branded and also capture customer data.
Yeah. Awesome. And along with that, I just wanted to highlight, talking to your suppliers, if you're not manufacturing yourself, is more important than ever. Obviously, like I mentioned, we've got tariffs on the horizon. Potentially, we've got a lot of things changing this year. You've got costs coming up. It's just kind of across the board. Eventually, that's going to impact your price and your buyers. But depending on what your competitors are doing, you could really get into a bad position if your competitors aren't having to raise their prices as much as you are to stay profitable. So just making sure that you're building and maintaining those relationships and talking to them. They may have some creative ways to update your product or come up with ways to reduce the packaging or make changes to help you avoid some of the issues that you might foresee. And then along with that, just really try to not pay extra FBA fees. I just saw Marketplace Pulse said that 25% of revenue last year came from third-party sellers paying FBA fees, which is just a lot of money. We've got things, the low inventory level fee. You need to stay in stock. It's our Seller Pulse tool actually has an alert that helps you watch for that. And we help you look for aged inventory surcharges and some of those other costs to help you dig in and make changes. You don't want excess inventory sitting around at FBA. You don't want to not have enough. You want to stay in stock without overstocking. Both Restock Pro and Seller Pulse can help you with that. We have a lot of great inventory management and planning features here at Ecom Engine. But that high, it's a returns processing fee is charged by category if you're above the return rate across the category average. We're seeing that one pop up for people more and more. The inbound fee, all of those are actually included in our FBA fee analysis. So you can dive in and say, oh, okay, by ASIN, by product, these are the things that are costing me the most money. And then you can look for ways to reduce that. But you're always going to have to pay storage fees if you're using FBA. I know Lou's got some things to talk about, he's seeing sellers kind of shift potentially away from FBA and more towards FBM, which I think will be really interesting to talk about. But if you are using FBA, make sure that you're just not paying additional fees as much as possible. And along with that, you really want to analyze your returns. And again, the returns average by category changes, but it's about 5 to 15%. Reducing your returns is an important way to improve profitability. We're seeing those changes to the reimbursements that Lou's going to get into, but it really impacts the way that returns and reimbursements are affecting your bottom line. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention. So Seller Pulse will actually send you a weekly email that allows you to break down the returns by return rate. And it's really simple by ASIN. So you can just go in there and see, okay, this ASIN cost me a lot of money last week. And it shows the weekly change, which I think is really key because, you don't want to look at this on a day-to-day basis, but weekly is probably just about right. You might want to look at it even monthly, but really digging in. It's kind of like we've always talked about with reviews. You really want to be able to look at those things regularly, pay attention to what your customers are saying. And then our returns analysis also includes customer comments and a word cloud to give you like the high level of what people are saying. It shows by disposition, by return type. So it gives you everything that you need to see what exactly is going on. And then I also wanted to highlight, we're really excited about Seller Pulse. It's still newer to the market. We released a lot of new reports back in November, but it was right around the holidays, so things got a little hectic. But it does actually include Feedback 5. So you get all the Seller Pulse reporting features along with everything that you would get in Feedback 5. So you can request reviews. And just at the beginning of the year, wanted to reiterate that it's important to make sure that you're following Amazon's review policies. If you have any questions about that, we're happy to help you with it. But never ask for and never offer incentive for a review, never buy a review, those basic things that you just want to make sure that you're checking all the boxes on compliance because no one wants to start out 2025 with a suspension or any kind of issue on their account. And with that, I will hand it over to Lou. Sorry. To tell us what's going on with FBA reimbursements in March.
Absolutely. Great breakdown there, Becky. And thank you. Cost reduction obviously continues to be a hot button for many brands. It was in 2024, will continue to be in 2025. At Gatita, I'm sure most of you on the call are familiar with us, right? Our North Star, our mission for over almost a decade now has really been to maximize our clients' profitability via FBA reimbursements. And we've done that very well for quite some time. Obviously, the last, I would say since October to now, has probably put a spotlight on the reimbursement industry more so than has ever been done before, probably since it really started becoming a thing. So first, let's review kind of just some of the changes that have taken place over the last 6 or 7 months. So initially, right, shortened timeframes on lost and damaged inventory claims. So Amazon starts auto reimbursing those discrepancy instances to sellers and reduces the time to file from 18 months down to 60 days. Initially, when we first heard about that change, we, like other sellers, were a bit skeptical if Amazon would actually, really perform the effectiveness that we thought they would in terms of really making sellers right in those areas. They've done a phenomenal job here. We're very pleased to report, very happy to report, right? So they're now returning about 99% of lost discrepancies and lost instances to sellers proactively, which is good. Outside of that, some other changes, right? And the biggest change that recently rolled out on December 18th was effective March 10th, Amazon is now going to change how much they're going to reimburse you, the seller. So historically, you were reimbursed the full sale price, or Amazon looked at the last 6 months of data, and they ultimately said, this is your average sale price, so we're going to reimburse you that price. Effective March 10th, that is now going to be the cost of good price, right? And I know there's been a lot of outrage around that, but let's really think about how this has been done outside of Amazon, right? So when we think about like even how 3PLs typically operate, instances of discrepancies or lost items, those generally operate under contractual liability and reimbursement structures, right? So most 3PL contracts are going to define the scope of liability through negotiated terms that protect both the seller and the 3PL. Standard agreements generally are going to cap a 3PL's financial responsibility at 25 cents to 50 cents per pound of lost inventory. That's far below the value of most goods. So for example, a 500-pound inventory loss under a 50-cent per pound clause yields only $250 in compensation, regardless of the product's actual value, right? So that's what most people are used to when dealing with third-party logistics companies. And it's arguable that Amazon was far too generous for far too long with their reimbursement policy by reimbursing the full sale price. But now this pendulum swing in the other direction is a bit of an overcorrection, right, on the other side, to be super aggressive, to only reimburse COGS, and I think cost of goods. And I think there is some confusion around what that means. So let's just break down what Amazon means by that. So you're now able to get reimbursed off your manufacturing costs, and the Cliff Notes, the TLDR version, it excludes costs such as shipping, handling, custom duties, and other costs, right? So this is essentially the cost that it is to actually make your product. That's not ideal, right? Obviously, it's going to be a much lower rate. If we look at this example for a seller, and this is pretty common, where your seller cost is $5, an Amazon sale price of $25 minus the FBA fees, the seller today is reimbursed $17.50, right? Effective March 10th, that's going to go down to $5. So this seller is effectively seeing a 72% decrease in reimbursement value. Depending on your markup, your cost of good, and your sale price, this could affect you greater or worse. There was one seller that we're working with right now. They do about 20 million in FBA revenue. Their cost of good is $2.35. Their average sale price is $24.95. That seller is now going to see about a 90% decrease in the reimbursements that they're seeing on a regular basis. Now, to boot, that seller is sending in 75,000 units a month on average into Amazon FBA. And we know historically at Gatita that about 1 to 3% of your inventory is impacted through these discrepancies. So you can do the math to see that that's going to be pretty impactful for really any seller across the board. So again, this is going to include costs such as shipping, handling, custom duties costs as well. You will be able to submit your cost values in Seller Central. So here's what this will look like. You'll come into Seller Central. There'll be a new feature for managing your sourcing cost pages. You'll come in there, you'll click Manage Sourcing Cost. From there, you're going to see what the sourcing cost is here in the column next to the F and SKU. And you'll notice there's a $58.42 Amazon estimated cost here. If you do not proactively go in and update this cost, this is what Amazon is going to reimburse you, right? So they are estimating based off of their data, their internal data. So that's going to be on you to make the decision. Do you want Amazon to have this information or not? Or are you okay with getting reimbursed the estimated value? Now, Becky mentioned something earlier, right? Sellers talking about maybe transitioning from FBM to FBA. I want to be clear. It is not a transition. We're not talking about like an exodus from FBA because it's critical. You need it. It has to be leveraged. That's how you get the Prime badge. You see conversions increase on your PDPs by 22% when you're using FBA versus not. So really the strategy will become like, how do I leverage FBA in the most strategic way, but also institute FBM cross-sell strategies and really maximize, right, my total value per customer with some maybe non-traditional ways that we were looking at previously. So just want to be clear on that. It's going to be essential. What will change is how maybe you're leveraging FBA going forward. So we'll just keep cruising along here.
Lou, we have a quick
question.
We have a big question. A big question.
Sure.
Yeah, and I
actually had a
just want to
question.
say a little housekeeping. I forgot to mention, we are recording this. We'll send it out hopefully tomorrow. And please ask questions. Everyone here is super happy to answer them. We've got experts on here for a reason. So the question is from Sam. He said, what happens if you lie about your costs?
Well, if you lie about your costs, Sam, you do so at your own demise, because like Amazon is very big on verification, they are going to put in standardization to verify the cost that you're putting in today. So if you can either choose Amazon's estimated value. Go ahead, Sam, did you say something? Sorry.
I was just going to say, as you're mentioning, they also estimate. So let's say the estimated cost is actually above my cost. And I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to go with that. Do you get penalized for that, or?
No, like that's like if you don't put it in, right, the estimated cost is above, you're the
they
benefit
can't
of that,
penalize you for not correcting them, essentially.
As far as our understanding as of today, that is the case, right? Right now, what we understand is they're going to verify the numbers that you put in, and this is how they're going to do that right now. So one second. So you'll come in, you'll put in your sourcing cost. Amazon will make it very explicit what their policy guidelines are right there, highlighted in blue. Please click on that and read it thoroughly before entering sourcing costs. Again, as Becky mentioned, last thing you want is any violations of terms that could potentially suspend your account at this very critical part of the year. Once that is updated, these are the types of documents that they will accept as proof. So manufacturer invoices, wholesaler invoices, purchase invoices, commercial invoices, Chinese Papao, probably murdered that, so I apologize. Right, but they'll be easy to understand information on how to really submit this information. But you bring up a good point, Sam, because like even though your cost is going to go down, or at least the value of reimbursements is going to go down, right? The process for actually getting documentation and the right documentation to get a lesser value is still going to be complex. So you're still going to need to rely on someone either internally or externally to really navigate and manage these reimbursements for you. I want to make it really clear to everybody that if you're not prioritizing this right now, meaning if you don't have someone either internally or a third-party partner like Getida on your lost inbound cases, filing every potential claim available to you prior to March 10th, it should really be like a #1 priority for you, because effective March 10th, all of that money, right, you're going to lose. You saw a minimum probably of 70%, in some cases 90% of that. If you work with us now and you sign up with us today or in the next couple of days, we can effectively file all of your outstanding claims before the deadline. And the great thing about that is any claim that we file prior to the deadline is still grandfathered into the current reimbursement policy. So if it's pending, if we have to go back and forth with Amazon, if we have to find new documentation, overturn a potentially rejected claim prior to 310, we still have the normal timeframes to do that. We just got to make sure that we get it filed prior to the 310 deadline. So let me just offer everybody here on the call before I turn it over to Sam and Mina. We want to incentivize everybody here to go ahead and act as soon as possible. Obviously, if you go ahead and scan this QR code, you can go ahead and activate your account here, get $300 in free FBA reimbursements. I did mention at the top of the call as well, FBA reimbursements at Gatita is one area that we specialize in. About 2 years ago or so, we were actually acquired by a large organization called SIB Fixed Cost Reduction. And our goal at SIB is really to ensure that all of our clients never overpay for any services from any vendor ever. And I know that sounds like a really large mission, but we are really uniquely qualified to help companies navigate these really complex waters of cost reduction. So whether it's FBA reimbursements, reducing shipping and logistics, UPS costs, carrier rates, bank fees, merchant charges, you name it, we can come in, run a full evaluation of what your organization's total spend is, and then look for areas where we can actually come in and reduce those fixed operational costs across your business by generally 30% or more. For this audience specifically, I would say if you are spending over $500,000 or planning on spending over $500,000 in the next 2 to 3 years in shipping costs because you're pushing direct to consumer conversions a little bit more, please reach out to me. Would love to talk to you about how we can optimize those shipping costs on top of the FBA reimbursements for you as well. That's all I got. Happen to address any other additional questions, but hopefully you found this helpful. And please connect with me on LinkedIn as well if we're not already. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Lou. We did actually get another question. So Gonzalo asked, what happens when Amazon loses a product and then finds it? Are they going to be able to sell it and win the buy box? So
great question. So that policy is not necessarily changing, right? What you're referring to is like, if Amazon loses a product, but then they actually find the product, can they essentially resell it, right? If your brand registered, the answer is continue to be no, right? If there's no brand registration protection, then Amazon could potentially do that. But lost products will continue to be essentially ran the same way that they are now, and Amazon will reimburse you for those products most of the time, practically.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
Well, I want to hear, I can't keep my head around Amazon ads. Mina is my guy. I'll just be honest, there's a lot happening. I know there was a lot at Unbox, there was a lot at Accelerate. So I just want the rundown. Can you kind of tell us what's going on?
Yes. So I'm going to share a presentation, and I think a big part of the presentation is going to cover two things that a lot of people kind of like touch on. So the first thing is, and obviously we're going to get into the DSP and a lot of that cool stuff. But the first thing is, I see a lot of news reporters on LinkedIn, and it's like every day, it's like Amazon just released this XYZ thing. And like the thing is, it's a ton of shiny object syndrome, in my opinion. And to this day, the foundations, the base foundations drive 90% of the sales for like 180 brands that we manage right now. And then the other thing is data. And I'm going to talk about this in a second as well, but like the one thing sellers need to be aware of, or any brand that's selling on Amazon needs to be aware of, is Amazon's data. I don't want to say cannot be trusted, but cannot be trusted. Like what I can trust is two things: spend, because that's on my credit card; revenue, because that's in my bank account. Like that's the two numbers that I can take to the bank, right? Everything else, click-through rate, conversion rate, impressions, ROAS, all of these things, like how do you know they're real? How do you know they're accurate? Like, can you validate it? And I'm not saying that Amazon is doing anything wrong, right? Like, I want you to think about, if you were Amazon, what would you do? How would you quantify Sam typing in electrolyte powder, seeing a video ad, scrolling down, clicking on organic, typing in sugar-free electrolyte powder, clicking on a competitor, then clicking on my ad again in the product detail page, seeing a DSP ad, going back, going on his other device on a computer. He's like, I need to do a little bit more research. How are you quantifying that? You know, like I want to put the ball in your court as like, you know, Mr. Seller, or Mr. or Mrs. Seller that I'm talking to, because it's so easy to just judge Amazon and say they're doing a terrible job. I'm like, okay, like run a 100 billion a year company, and like let me know how you do it better, right? So what I've learned is like, you know, we're given the system. Like you know, all of us also don't agree with a lot of the things like in our countries, right? Like you know, but you can't control it. It's like too big. It's too massive of like a thing. So you're like, you know what? I'm just going to play the game. And so for me, what I figured is like the best way to play the game is you know what spend is, you know what sales are, and you are going to change one thing at a time, because when you do, you can say, I changed this one thing and this is the result. And a lot of times it's noise, and it's like, like it went up by like 2%, it went down by 2%. Like, was it actually meaningful or not? I don't know. Sometimes, you want to control everything, but like you can't, because like certain external factors happen. So it is very tricky. It's very hard, but I just want to put it out there that there's a ton of tools, AI, Rufus, and then there's a ton of data. And like the power is in like ignoring it and saying, what's the foundational concept? How do I grow on Amazon? It's very simple. More people see me, more people click on me, more people convert. And if you're a consumable, a higher lifetime value. So more people come back and buy again, right? And if you just think about those, and it's like, how can more people see me and at the lowest cost? How can more people click on me? Main image, price, reviews and star ratings, maybe discounts and coupons. And how can more people convert? Super high quality listing. And the one that no one really mentions is product market fit, right? No one ever mentions product market fit, but if you create a superior product, if you were, if we're like Nokia phones and you create an iPhone, or you create a BlackBerry, not even, you just go from Nokia to a BlackBerry, right? Like immediately, like you're better than everyone else on the market. And now no one's like comparing one Nokia to like another Samsung. They're just like, wow, like BlackBerry, it's like tick, 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 like I want it, you know what I mean? And so most people aren't looking at product market fit. And I think that is the number one thing that will help more people click on you and more people convert. And then, a stellar listing and all that kind of stuff. So again, I'm going to jump into the news because it's cool and it's the news, but I also want to remind people that, it's usually the stuff like the foundational stuff that works. All right. So, wait, why does this say Q&A? One second, hold on. Okay, because it's a slideshow, it just like went all the way on its own. Okay, here we go. Here. Okay. Do you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yep, looks
Cool,
good.
cool, cool. All right, Amazon updates and changes. So who are we? You guys know me, Mina, Elias. I own the supplement brand, grew it, scaled it. People started asking me for help. I became like the #1 guy for Amazon ads. And then we built an agency that manages hundreds of brands, and we do everything end to end. And so we've essentially come in as the internal Amazon division for, hundreds of brands and help them grow and scale on Amazon. Sam, you can introduce yourself.
All things Amazon DSP. I've been in the Amazon space 7, 8 years. Amazon DSP specifically for about 5, which doesn't sound like that long, but that's basically as long as it's existed. So I've got the chance to dive really deep, and I'm basically the counterpoint to Mina's PPC expertise on the programmatic side.
Yeah, Sam basically, started at Thrasio, like in DSP, and he basically built the DSP for 300 brands. So, I mean, if there's anything DSP, it's him. So, chapters are Amazon Ads updates, Amazon DSP overview, Amazon DSP updates and changes. So, what's new? Amazon DSP streaming TV ads. So, this is really cool. Story is, Amazon hits me up and they're like, Mina, we want to pay you to do a video for us. I'm like, cool, what's the video? Amazon ads hits me up and they're like, we recently released in beta Amazon streaming TV ads. I'd like to give you $10,000 to spend and share your experience with the world. So I'm like, okay, cool. Me knowing like, streaming TV ads, dude, how are you going to quantify that, right? Talk about data. So me knowing how like creative ads work and like, having a little bit of experience with Facebook, whatever, I'm like, okay, cool. I need a really good creative. So I sent my, product to my video editor and I said, I want you to make me a really good video that is like choppy, like attention grabbing and mentions all the benefits. And then I will target, electrolyte supplements, or if possible, sugar-free electrolyte supplements. And then, we'll just see like, what happens. And so I set it up. It was, there's a whole video on my YouTube channel. You can watch step by step how to set it up. But I set it up. We launched the ad, and I spent $10,000 over the course of a month. And what happened was before the 30 days before, I documented, what my spend and sales were. So spend and total sales. During, I documented my spend and total sales. And then after, 30 days after, I documented my spend and total sales. And the interesting thing is, before, let's say I was doing like, whatever, 2,000 in spend, 30,000 in sales. After, it was like, 12,000 in spend and like 70,000 in sales. And when you look at the ROAS, like it went up, but like the ROAS wasn't that great. But then after I turned it off, it went down to back to like the 2,000 spend, but it stayed up at like 50 something in sales. Like the whole number, the exact numbers are in the video, but it was a really good, like it was kind of cool to see, like I was able to run these streaming TV ads and show up in all of like Amazon's like, streaming TV network. And like maybe the direct return wasn't amazing, but after running it and then turning it off, there was a huge halo effect. So it's something I think definitely worth experimenting with. And I'll tell you this, don't expect like an immediate return. Don't expect any data like from the streaming TV ad itself to be indicative of the performance. But if you have really good creatives, I do believe that when added on top of your regular ads, do overall improve your return on ad spend. So that's one thing. Another thing is boosted posts on Amazon. So does it work? Again, it was another one of those where Amazon hits me up and says, hey, we recently launched, like, how you could do Amazon posts, where it's like you just post images on Amazon, and it was kind of like an Instagram feed on Amazon. And then now they allow you to put money behind it. So they walked me through saying, hey, I want you to post like 20 pictures on Amazon, and then whichever one actually gets some traction, let's put some money behind it. So we did that. And I did see a little bit of like, traction here and there, but nothing significant. With that being said, I do think it's a cool tool to at least split test. And then the final piece that I wanted to touch on is increased ads data. This is the one that I really want to sit with, sit in with a lot of people. Is a lot of people come to me and they look at the data and they are like, Mina, look at my data, look at this, look at that. And a lot of times there is so much noise, and because the customer journey on Amazon is not straight. It's not on Facebook, maybe, right? You are scrolling Facebook, you see an ad, you click on it, you go to the landing page, you convert, or if you don't convert, you get served the retargeting ad. You see it a few other times, you click on it, you go to the landing page, you convert. It's very straightforward, right? With Amazon, it's an entire journey. And the problem is you have some ads that are click-based and then other ads that are view-based, which means that DSP, if you load on the page, and also another thing with DSP is viewability, right? Like you could, if you don't set tight viewability parameters, it means that this is the page. You got that? Okay. But listen, if this is the page, right? DSP is going to say, oh, I get the credit for that, because I showed up, right? No, doesn't matter where, right? But it's like, I get the credit, I showed up. And so with that being said, like you have DSP, reporting certain data, you have PPC reporting certain data, you have organic data, you have like all these different data points. And it's really hard to actually pinpoint what was able to contribute to what, when you're trying to get super granular. And so I think avoid granularity. I think the best way to overcome this is to say, okay, I'm going to treat this like a shower knob, right? And you're going to turn on the water and you're going to launch some ads. And then you're going to slowly turn the shower knob. Like it's not saying like 62.1, 62.2, 64.5 degrees. You're just kind of turning, testing, and then getting closer and closer until it's like that perfect temperature. And that's exactly how I found Amazon works. We kind of know that the levers that we can pull, right? And the levers that we can pull are essentially, the keywords in the campaigns, the bids in the campaigns, the campaign budgets, the types of campaigns, et cetera, et cetera. So what you can pull, what you can change. As long as you're not changing all of them at the same time, you should be able to isolate and say, okay, I'm going to take my top 10 campaigns with the best return on ad spend and double the budget. Let's see what happens. And if all of a sudden you notice that, the ROAS is really good on those campaigns, they're now spending a little bit more, your total sales are higher, great. If you go in and you say, okay, I'm going to take all the keywords that have like high ACOS, no matter how many sales they've made, and cut the ACOS down or cut the bids down, and then all of a sudden you notice that your total sales went down, you're like, well, why did my organic sales go down? You can start to deduct that, well, that campaign, which had a high ACOS, but was making a lot of sales, was contributing to that organic sales. And so maybe it was contributing to organic positioning, or maybe it was actually an PPC sale, but it wasn't being counted. It wasn't being attributed correctly, which is very, very common. I mean, that's why, I mean, there's software companies out there, not on Amazon, but like for Facebook, that are literally dedicated to being so much, you know, in the weeds technically, and like trying to make sure that like this sale is actually attributed to this ad, because you know the ad platforms like Amazon, Facebook, whatever, they don't usually work perfectly, and it's fine, you know. And so when it comes to increased ads data, please take it with a grain of salt and try and focus on like, okay, cool, this is new, this is awesome, I'm gonna try it out, but I'm gonna change one thing and I'm gonna see the outcome, and do it to a degree that doesn't result in noise. So I was telling Sam this the other day. We just onboarded a client for DSP, and I was having a call with the client, and he's my friend. So I'm like, listen, I'm gonna ask you a question. Tell me, if I spend $5,000 on DSP and you make $25,000 more in total sales, will you be able to tell that that's from DSP, or could that be noise? He said, no, that could potentially be noise. I'm like, okay, what about $10,000 and $40,000 to $50,000 in sales? He said, no, that for sure, then I would be able to tell that DSP caused that growth. I'm like, okay, we have to try DSP with $10,000. We can't do 5, because if we do 5, I can't trust what's inside the DSP, you know, campaign manager, and you could end up with noise. And then now we're like looking at each other like, hey man, you're charging me a little bit more, I'm spending more money on ads, did we make more money? I don't know. But when you spend, you know, 10, you don't want to spend also 20, because then maybe you're like just doing it too much too fast. And this goes not just for DSP, this goes for like, you know, everything. Essentially, when you're launching it, you want to understand roughly how much do you need to spend for it to not make noise. TikTok Shop is another great example of that, right? If you're launching on TikTok Shop, like I am launching on TikTok Shop, you know, my brand and other brands, because what we're seeing is like by getting the product in a bunch of creators' hands, spending money on ads, what's happening is a lot of people are seeing it and then they're transitioning over to Amazon. And that halo effect is causing, number one, for us to make more profit, and number two, for us to scale. But the problem is, some people want to spend $2,000 only and give the product to 50 people. And so there's usually a certain threshold that exceeds noise. You just want that minimum threshold. You don't want to go too crazy, but you also, if you're too low, you know, it's going to be noise. All right, I'll let Sam jump in from here. Sam,
Can I
you're covering AI or not? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So Naeem asked if there's any risk if bidding under trademark, if they don't use the trademark in the listing. So that's, I think, more of a
No.
PPC question. Okay.
Yeah, no, you can run ads on any word with no risk. Okay, cool. All right, so let's just cover some AI updates real quick. So actually, this one is you, Sam. So I'll let you handle this one.
We can just breeze through this. I mean, ultimately, the AI stuff is just getting more widely integrated across the board. And there are pros and cons with that, right? Like on the creative side, it gives smaller brands that don't have the assets the ability to generate images using prompts, right? Which is great, and it can save some people some money. But as the AI ecosystem gets more saturated and people pick up on that, having your own custom creatives and doing it yourself just becomes more and more important to stand out. Because of how prominent AI has gotten in the past few years, people are good at sniffing it out. So if you're on a budget constraint or you want to test things out, absolutely worth a test. That being said, in my opinion, all these AI updates are really just, if anything, giving more power to the people that don't utilize it.
Amazing. Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, this one is one that I added. One thing I'm noticing is, if you guys remember, there used to be Q&A on the listings, questions and answers. Now, when you go in and type a question, Rufus AI actually scans through all the old answers and starts, you know, like recommending a question answer to you. So what I've been doing is I've been going into all my competitors' listings, typing in questions, and then seeing the Rufus autofill, and then copy pasting the Rufus, asking it on my own listing, saying there's no answer, click, and then answering it from my own Seller Central account. And that is essentially, you know, Rufus has already been trained to find that question on other listings. I'm leveraging that knowledge that it already has and feeding it, you know, an exact question answer on my own listing. And we're seeing that helps. And it's one of the places that you can I don't know if it's like 100% accurate, but you can at least start ranking for brand name keywords that you usually couldn't. So for example, my product is MMA Nutrition. Liquid IV and LMNT are like big competitors. So that's where I can put in a bunch of Liquid IV LMNT keywords without getting penalized. All right, Amazon, Sam, take it away.
And Sam, I'll just jump in here with another question from the audience that I think you'll answer, but I just want to flag it. So Kareem said, at what revenue level does DSP become appropriate for a brand? Should a brand be making at least over $1 million in revenue?
It's not as much a question of revenue as I would say ad spend. So one thing that I'm going to touch on at the end is the viability of Amazon DSP for brands that don't even sell on Amazon. So that's especially where that question gets a little bit tricky. But as a general benchmark, the things that I look for if we're talking about Amazon products is one, you need at least one product with 100 reviews. That's on the lower end. And two, Amazon DSP is really meant to be added on top of some dialed in PPC spend. So whether that number is 10,000, 20,000 on PPC, it kind of differs from brand to brand. That being said, the right time to layer in Amazon DSP is when adding incremental budget to PPC isn't getting you incremental dollars at the bottom of the funnel. Because there's going to be an inflection point where if I add $1,000 more to Amazon PPC, I'm not actually making more money. Usually that's when we roll out DSP and then we see a lift in results across both. So just to give everyone, I mean, ultimately, this is meant to be what's new and what's next. So I'm not going to spend too long explaining this, but just in the event that anyone doesn't know what Amazon DSP is, it stands for Amazon's demand side platform, not to be confused with the other Amazon DSP, which is delivery service provider. Basically, it's Amazon's programmatic marketing solution. So while PPC utilizes queries, Amazon DSP uses audiences based on past purchase and browsing behavior. So you put people into audiences and you serve display ads or video ads based on what they typically look at or buy on Amazon. So you can make custom audiences. There are over 16,000 pre-created audiences. There are a million ways to do it, which means there are a million ways to do it wrong. So one thing that I want to touch on, and I think that the way that Mina was describing this shiny object syndrome and the way that I think people are focusing on a lot of the wrong things as it relates to data, I think that's a really important point because a lot of the time when I will audit DSP accounts, I'll see things like people are utilizing AMC, Amazon Marketing Cloud, and they have 100 different audiences and all these complex bidding systems, but then their budget allocation's messed up or only 10% of their ads are even visible because they didn't set a viewability minimum. So I think that with the platform that's kind of complex like this, it's good to keep it simple. That being said, this is going to be kind of a counterpoint to what I just said. Amazon is also taking steps to make DSP more simple, and I actually think it's kind of problematic. So because learning DSP is a little complex and there's not as many resources out there to learn how to do it effectively, and not everyone even has access to it, people can be scared of it or they don't know how to run it and they're winging it. So Amazon has taken some steps to simplify it. And essentially what they've done is prior you had to select your audiences, select the inventory you wanted to show on, whether it's on Amazon, off Amazon. There's Amazon's owned and operated properties, which includes things like IMDb and Twitch. And then there are 30 plus 34 third-party exchanges, which means functionally your ads can show anywhere to your audiences. You used to have to select all these things yourself, but the way that Amazon's running it now is the default is you opt into all of these things. So if you want to just run ads on Amazon, let's say, you have to select Amazon's owned and operated property, edit, deselect Twitch and IMDb and all these other places, and then hit save. So if you're running Amazon DSP without really knowing what you're doing, then the odds are your ads are going to be showing up in a lot of places that you didn't expect. The other thing that they've rolled out is an option to auto create what are called Performance Plus campaigns. So you can actually go into Amazon DSP, enter a couple ASINs, enter your goal, press go. Amazon makes line items, sets bids, and will run it for you. And it sounds great because it takes maybe 15 seconds, but it's actually pretty problematic just due to the fact that the baseline settings of Amazon are going to make sure your ad shows everywhere and to as many people as possible because that's how Amazon makes money. So you can set it up and run it really easily now. That being said, it's a little more dangerous just because I believe in self-controlled simplicity. I do not believe in Amazon controlled simplicity, because when it's Amazon controlled simplicity, they create everything. You don't get a lot of insight, and the performance is either bad or it looks good, but you're not really driving sales. So you should keep things simple, but you want to determine that level of simplicity versus putting everything in Amazon's hands. We can go to the next slide.
Yeah, sorry, sometimes it lags. Oh, there we go.
So this is another interesting update. Digital out of home. I like to think of it as, in the advertising space, everything kind of comes full circle. Like you go from billboards to digital ads, and now we're back to billboards. So essentially through Amazon DSP, you can actually buy physical ad real estate. So the way that they rolled it out is initially it's just Whole Foods. My guess is they're going to expand on this, but Whole Foods has a lot of screens. If you've ever been to a Whole Foods, you can now functionally buy ad space across those screens at Whole Foods. So this is interesting for one, because if you're a brand that sells at Whole Foods, even if you don't sell at Amazon, you can tap into Amazon DSP and you can show ads for your products on these billboards. So it's a really interesting idea. It really opens the doors for a lot of brands to advertise more. That being said, I know for a fact attribution is going to be an absolute mess. So you kind of have to test it in a controlled way and just zoom out and look at your total sales if you run something like this.
Sam, is there any like kind of use cases that you might have seen for this? Like, for example, some of our bigger brands, Neurogum, they're already in Whole Foods, like physically. Do you think that would be like really good for them?
That's the only time it makes sense. We're actually launching it for them in March. I don't even know if I told you that, but yeah,
Nah, I
basically
didn't.
you need custom creatives. You put it on the screens in Whole Foods. If you don't sell in a Whole Foods, I can't imagine it would make any sense. But that being said, if you do and you have good creative assets, you don't even have to be an e-commerce brand. Any brand that sells at Whole Foods, it's a very viable option for them to have their product show up on screens. As long as your creative's good, people go find it in the aisle. And you pay on a CPM, cost per mile, which is cost per 1,000 impressions basis, and not a lot of people are using it yet. So in my opinion, it's kind of a no-brainer if you sell at Whole Foods. The only problem is attribution's obviously not going to be good.
Yeah. I would do retargeting too. I mean, even if I'm not in Whole Foods, but like you're seeing me, like if maybe if the product makes a little bit more sense, but if you clicked on me and you're like, I'm not gonna buy this, and then you saw me at Whole Foods and some billboards, I feel like maybe I feel like retargeting is usually like the more people see you in different places, the higher likelihood they are to convert.
100%. But the issue is, for this sort of thing, there's no way to put people into audiences, right? So it's weird because
Oh,
at Amazon, like at Whole Foods, you can use Amazon to pay. That being said, these are they're billboards, right? They're screens within a Whole Foods, so there is no audience targeting. There's just location targeting.
okay. And you can't say like the location, like, hey, the people who've clicked on my product but haven't purchased are like located in these zip codes, like
This is a
mainly
good
like.
example of exactly what you said. You're getting too complex with this.
All right, all right, all right. Keep going, keep going,
Good.
keep
Like
going.
if you have a couple like very high, like if you look at your overall like geographic sales volume, you can pick areas and serve it in those Whole Foods. That works. Like if it's big
Solid.
in California and New York, then you can just do Whole Foods in California and New York. But I wouldn't go zip code by zip code because that gets too messy.
Okay, solid.
And then yeah, last bit of this, just Amazon DSP for non-Amazon brands. So this is something, it's called non-endemic. If you see that term, that's essentially what this means. It's something that I think has been growing in recent years, but it's still not really widely understood or widespread. Basically, there are a lot of programmatic buying tools like Trade Desk where they put people into audiences and you buy ad real estate across the internet. Like it's very standard. However, the way that those platforms get their data is a little bit, it's a black box. It's a little confusing. Like there's this website that I forget what it is, but you type it in and it tells you all the audiences you fall in for these programmatic buying tools. And it said that I was like in my 50s and married and all this stuff. So they're just often wrong. Whereas with Amazon, it's like what people actually look at, purchase, it tells you a lot about who they are. So the data is incredibly valuable. So even if let's say you're 24-hour fitness and you're looking to promote some new special, you can utilize Amazon DSP, target any zip code where you have a gym, and target people that are in market for whey protein, whatever it is. So I think just the data is what makes it so valuable. And I think that more and more non-Amazon brands are going to start to understand that they can use this data to their advantage. And yeah, I think that's it.
And we did have one question. I think you kind of answered, Sam, but Nabil said, what are the advantages and challenges of Amazon's strategy to combine and expand the ad inventory? And how does it affect advertisers using DSP?
So the benefit is predominantly on Amazon's side, because from their end, the more supply side exchanges you tap into, the more ad real estate you're ultimately bidding on, the more opportunities your ad can show up, whether it's going to be profitable for you or not, and the more money you can spend. So on one hand, Amazon's simplifying it so more people can use it. On the other hand, Amazon's simplifying it so they can expand their reach further and have, because I mean, at the end of the day, whether you make money or not, Amazon wants Amazon ads to show up everywhere possible. So the benefit is pretty much anyone can run DSP now. The downside is that you got to really know how to do it if you're going to do it well.
Yeah, I think Amazon DSP is like probably the fastest money pit because it is all based on views. And so like there's a few things, right? So number one, the settings matter, like viewability matters. And what I mean by viewability is Sam was about to explain this. You could set a viewability parameter, which means if you set it to like, let's say 100, correct me if I'm wrong saying, if you set it to like 100, it means like if the ad shows up at the bottom of page 1, even though it didn't load on the screen, this is the screen, this is the full page, even if it showed up here, you never even seen it, it charges you. Versus if you set the viewability to like, let's say 20%, it means if it shows up in the top 20% of the page,
It's actually the opposite. You're on the right track, but it's actually the opposite. So the way that it works,
okay.
Viewability tells you like out of 1,000 impressions, what percentage, like I think they use 60% of the ad was visible for at least 2 seconds, something like that. What percentage of your ads were actually like, because they charge you based on how many times the ad loads. And then viewability is how many times it was realistically seen. So you set a viewability minimum, and the way that it determines it is like, okay, we're not going to bid, like they have percentages on any given web page based on what percentage of the time that ad's visible. So the part way at the bottom, maybe 20% of people view it. So if you set your viewability minimums to 50% and above, you're only bidding on ad real estate that's viewed at least half the time. And the higher you bid, the more premium placements you get. So what I see way too often is brands that, or agencies mostly, that want to get a really low CPM because it looks good. And then, you know, oh my God, we're paying 50 cents for 1,000 impressions. And then, yeah, 5% of your ads are viewed.
Yeah. So it's like it's much more likely that you spend money and waste it on DSP than on anything else. And so that's why it's like, okay, cool, you know, feel free to use it, but like you really need to master it. And not only that, so like that's number one is just kind of talking about the technical aspects. Number two is we're seeing advanced agencies make this mistake, and it's like, are you excluding audiences? So like what I was talking about is when we create let's say a retargeting campaign, are we creating people who viewed my product in the last X number of days, excluding people who purchased my product, excluding people who purchased all of my competitors' product? Because if they bought a product, they're no longer in the market. Or like when I'm doing competitor targeting, am I doing people who viewed Liquid IV? Or am I doing people who viewed Liquid IV, excluding people who viewed me, excluding people who purchased me and all of my competitors? And so really understanding like what is the goal that I'm trying to achieve with the campaign. Like for retargeting, I want people who've seen me and still in the market to keep seeing me. Loyalty, people who've purchased me and potentially in the market to come back and see me again. Competitors, fresh audience, people who've never seen me and still in the market. Complementary, same thing, you know, people who are in a very close market, like I'm selling keto, they're runners, something like that. And, you know, they're very highly potentially in the market to buy my product, excluding them have made a purchase decision to anything that might be like, well, I don't really need this type of thing. And so that is the hardest part. And on top of all of that, like marrying PPC and DSP, because they have to work together. It can't be like, you know, hey guys, we're going to spend 10K this month on DSP. Perfect. And last month PPC, we spent 25K. This month we spent 45K. Okay, you just like created a huge wave on PPC and then you added DSP. What worked? And we changed the main image, by the way. And it's like, okay, come on, dude. Like, what's happening here? You know, there's too many things going on at once. And so that is why, like, I think DSP is the highest likelihood for you to just burn money. And so everyone can use it, sure. Just like make sure that you are either well versed or like are hiring an expert when you do, and you can keep them accountable. Like Sam and I have so much content on DSP and how you can keep whoever runs DSP for you accountable. So make sure you know the viewability is there, the look back window is there, and it's correct, and it's not like Sam explained the whole thing where agencies can do a look back window where like no matter what, like they take credit for the sale.
There's a lot of ways to manipulate it.
Yeah. It's there's many different ways of like saying like, oh, you know, an ad was served and someone purchased the product like 60 days ago. That's me. Yeah, that was us. You know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. Cool.
Awesome. Thank you all for these updates. Sam and Mina, not to put you on the spot, but did you have a special offer to share? I think
Yes.
we talked about it. Yeah. I think you said 1 month free, but I didn't want to throw it out there unless that was.
Oh, yes. Sam, you had a DSP special. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
a
I mean the way that we like to roll it out ultimately for brands that are interested in testing it. I mean, not everyone. I mean, I'll tell you straight up if you shouldn't run it. I probably say that more often than not when we get inquiries. But if you're here and you mention this, yeah, we'll do. You have to pay for the ad spend, obviously, but no management fees first month, and then you'll have to pay me eventually because it's gonna work. Not at first.
Cool. Well, yeah, we're all trying to cut costs, make sure that we're spending money properly. Like Mina said, getting in front of the right audience, not getting too in the weeds. Good goals for 2025. Like Lou mentioned, if you've got FBA reimbursements hanging out there that you might be able to get to before that deadline comes up really quick, make sure you're getting your money back, and then make sure you're ready to change your process coming into March. And yeah, we'll see what 2025 has to bring, but I appreciate you guys taking the time to share with our audience. And then I believe you all mentioned that you're accessible on LinkedIn if anyone has questions and they want to touch base with you.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. I'll send out an email with the special offers and the recording to this hopefully tomorrow.